Alright, so this is the study guide video. On the left side I have the study guide, on the right side I have the Desmos calculator, so you guys can see what calculations I'm doing and how I'm doing that. Okay, so let's just start with question 1. Okay, so question 1 says, for each of the equations below, determine the number of solutions. So if you remember, this is talking about the discriminant. Now the discriminant is this formula right here, b squared minus 4ac. Now if my number comes out to be a positive, that means my answer is going to have two answers, two real solutions. If my number comes out to 0, my answer is 1. Now if my number comes out to negative, any type of negative number, I have a complex solution, which is really 0 solutions. Okay, so let's start with the first one. The first one is x squared minus 6x plus 11. So your a is going to be 1, your b is going to be a negative 6, and your c is going to be 11. So all I need to do, use my calculator on the right hand side and plug it into the formula. So I put my radical. My b is going to be a negative 6. Close the parentheses and put a square there. Okay. Next is going to be a minus 4. My a is going to be a 1. And my c is going to be 11. Okay. So clearly this says undefined. Okay. Which means my number is going to be a negative number. Because of that, I have a complex solution. Okay. Undefined means it comes out no number. Okay. Alright, the next one. X squared minus 6x equals 9. Now the first thing you should notice is that every quadratic has to equal 0. So how do I move this 9? Well, since it's a negative, I've got to add it. So this becomes x squared minus 6x plus 9 equals 0. Now once I've done that, I can label my a, which is 1, my b, which is negative 6, and my c, which is 9. Okay, so now all I'm going to do is replace my numbers. So b is already negative 6, so I don't have to replace that one. A is also 1, so I don't have to replace that. The only number I do have to replace is the 11, and that number should now be 9. Okay, you see how that answer comes out 0, so that's an easy one, one real solution. Okay, the last one, very easy. How do I move this x squared? Well, I got to minus it. So it's going to be a minus x squared. That's a positive 6x. And that's a negative 7. Okay. Go ahead. The a this time is going to be a negative 1. The b this time is going to be a 6. And the c is going to be a negative 7. You guys finish that problem and come up with the solution. Okay. Just all you got to do is replace those numbers. The last one says a quadratic function with no x-intercepts. So if it has no x-intercepts, that means it has no solutions, which is complex. So the only one you're doing is number 3 on that one. Let's do number 2 now. Find all values of k such that x squared minus 6x plus k equals 0. Okay, so first of all, we want it to have two solutions. So what we got to do is we got to look at what number gives us one solution. Okay, again, what number gives us one solution? So how I do that is I take that b value. The b value is negative 6. You're going to divide that number by 2 and square that number. This should make sense. We've done this before. So that answer would be negative 3. Negative 3 squared equals 9. Okay, so let me explain how this works. So my a in this problem is going to be 1. My b is going to be negative 6, and my c is going to be 9. Now, if you look on the right hand side, the calculator, we already did that problem. Okay, that gave me 0. Now let's see what happens if I change this 9 to a 10. You see how that number comes out undefined? What if I did 11? Undefined. 12? Undefined. 13 undefined. Okay, that means my number has to be less than 9. So what's a number less than 9? 8. You see how that number came out to 2? 3. It gives me a number, a positive number. Therefore, k has to be less than 9. So all the values less than 9 would work. Let's move on to number 3. The graph of the quadratic function is below. Okay. First thing you should already know, it's a negative. Okay. It's a negative, therefore it's a frowny face. So that means my a value is going to be negative. So right off the bat, you can eliminate two numbers here. You can eliminate a and you can eliminate c. Both of these have a negative value. I'm sorry, a positive value, and this is a negative parabola. So the next thing you should do is look at this form. This form is called vertex form. Now, if you don't remember what vertex form, it's your f of x equals a parentheses x minus h plus k. And your h and your k are the vertex. So if you look at these numbers, the same number that's in the same place as h is 2 for this one, positive 2. And the same number for k is negative 8. So this is supposed to be our vertex, and if I look at the graph right here, the vertex right here is 2, 8. So I'm looking for the graph that has a 2, 8. So this one has a negative 2 and this one has a positive 8. But if you remember the lesson, remember how I told you the number in the parentheses, you choose the opposite. So the opposite of positive 2 is negative 2. And the number inside, you just take the actual number. Actual number. That actual number is negative 8. So clearly that's not our parabola. Our parabola is 2 and 8. So I take the opposite of the parentheses, that's a 2, and the same number here, that's an 8. Is that our parabola? Yes, that's our answer, D. Okay, let's move on to question 4. Okay, when the function f of x equals negative x squared is multiplied by a value a, where a is greater than 1, the graph of the new function g of x equals negative a x squared, what is it going to do? Well, on this one, is it going to open up downward or upward? First of all, we can automatically say that this is a negative. Therefore, my graph is going to be negative. So it's going to open downward. So it's not going to be A, and it's not going to be B. Okay? Now, if I multiply a number by a large number than 1, so when I start multiplying, my graph actually gets smaller. When I multiply by a larger number or a small number, it goes wide. So small numbers, large numbers. So therefore, if I multiply a number by a bigger number than 1, that means my graph's actually going to get narrower. Therefore, D is your right answer. Okay, let's move to 5. Okay, which statement is true about the quadratic function g of x shown in the table below and the function f of x equals x minus 3 squared plus 3? Okay, first thing you should look for is the vertex in this one. So what is the vertex here? So the vertex, we see a negative 3 here, but remember inside parentheses you take the opposite, so it's a 3, and then outside the parentheses you take the real number 3. Okay, 3 comma 3 should be the vertex. Okay, so let's see here. The graph has the same vertex. Let's see what the vertex is here for the g of x one. And we're looking for either the highest or the lowest. So no. So if I look at 3 comma negative 5, that's actually going to be the vertex. You can tell because it's the smallest number, negative 5, and it's the only one that has a negative 5. All the other ones have the same numbers, negative 4, negative 4, negative 1, 4, and 4. So the only oddball out is the 3 comma negative 5. Therefore, that's the vertex. Clearly, that is not the vertex of the other one, so that's wrong. Okay. Next thing you can look for is what is the y-intercept? The y-intercept. So y-intercept is when x is 0 and y is a number. So x is 0 here at 0 comma negative 4. Okay. So if I put 0 in for this formula, 0 minus 3 squared plus 3, okay. 0 minus 3 is negative 3. Negative 3 squared is 9. Plus 3 equals, well, 9 plus 3 is 12. Okay. So this problems is 0 comma 12. So therefore, they don't even have the same y-intercept. Let's look at the next one, the same axis of symmetry. Okay. So the axis of symmetry here was 3. Remember, it's just the x value. This axis of symmetry is 3. So do they have the same axis of symmetry at least? Yeah, they do. C. Okay. So remember that the axis of symmetry is just the x value for the vertex. All right. Let's move to question 6. Question 6. On your paper, graph the function negative 2 parentheses x minus 1 parentheses x plus 5. Referring to your graph, answer the following questions. We're actually not going to graph it. We're just going to solve algebraically. So the first thing you're going to want to do, you're going to want to get rid of these parentheses. So you're going to take the x times the x times the 5, the negative 1 times the x, and the negative 1 times the 5. Okay, so that's going to give you, you're going to put negative 2 on the outside. X times x is x squared. Okay, x times 5 is 5x. Negative 1 times x is negative 1x. And negative 1 times 5 is negative 5. Okay, you should see some like terms. Okay, those like terms are in the middle. So therefore, you're going to combine those like terms. So it's x squared plus 5 minus 1 is 4 plus 4x minus the 5. Now what you're going to do is multiply all of these numbers by negative 2. So that's going to be negative 2x squared minus 8x plus 10. Okay, this is now called standard form. Okay, so this is standard form. If you look at the bottom, question F says put this in standard form. Well, we already did that, so that's negative 2x squared plus negative 8x plus 10. Okay, from this I can automatically find the y-intercept. So that's easy. Remember that the y-intercept is just the last number. The last number here is 10, so the y-intercept is going to be 10. 0 comma 10. Pretty easy. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to change this standard form to vertex form. So if you kind of remember that, that's when we have those completing the square where we have those boxes. So let's go ahead and let's try that out. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to separate right here and right here. Okay, all you're going to do is separate the x's. Put the 10 on the outside. Next thing we're going to do is we're going to divide the parentheses by the first number. That first number is negative 2. And you're only going to divide the parentheses. So when I do that, these cross out and I'm left with x squared. Negative 8 divided by negative 2 is a positive 4x. We're going to put a box right here, close the parentheses, plus 10. Okay, that negative 2 is now going to be on the outside. Okay, Next thing you're going to do is figure out what goes in this box. Okay, so you take that b value and you divide that b value by 2 and you square that number. 4 divided by 2 is 2. 2 squared is 4. So this is going to be plus 4. Now if you add here, you're actually going to subtract. You're going to do the opposite here. So it's going to be minus 4. But it's going to be minus 4 times the negative 2. Okay. So this becomes negative 2. Then I take my x and I just write the x first. I take whatever number I squared and it's going to be x plus 2. And then negative 4 times negative 2 is actually positive 8. So this is going to be 10 plus 8. 10 plus 8 is plus 18. Okay, now that is vertex form. So you have negative 2 here. That is question E. Question E is negative 2 there. Then you have your x minus, it's actually going to be a plus. So x plus 2 plus 18. Okay. Now from here, I can easily find the vertex. Now the vertex is that 2. It's going to be the opposite. So it's going to be a negative 2 and it's going to be the 18. That's my vertex. The axis of symmetry is just the x part. So it's going to be the negative 2. Okay. Last thing we need to find is the x intercepts. Remember, the x-intercepts are found easily by using this calculator. So I'm going to clear the calculator right now. Okay, and we're going to use that quadratic formula. So the first thing we need to do, identify your A, your B, and your C. So A is negative 2, B is negative 8, and C is 10. Okay, if you don't remember the formula, it's negative B plus or minus the square root of B squared minus 4AC all over 2A. Okay, so that formula looks like this. X equals negative, and your B is negative 8. Then it's going to be plus or minus the square root of B squared. B squared is negative 8 squared minus 4 times A, which is negative 2, times C, which is 10. Close that, and it's going to be all over 2 times negative 2. So on my calculator, what I'm going to do, the first thing I'm going to press is that x and y, that fraction. So I'll press it again, the x and y at the bottom. Okay, I'm going to put a negative. I'm putting this in exactly how it says it. Negative 8. Close that. We're going to do plus first, radical. In parentheses, I'm going to put a negative 8 squared minus 4 times negative 2 times 10. I'm going to press the bottom to get me to the bottom of the fraction. 2 parentheses negative 2. Okay, so that answer gave me a negative 5. So one of my zeros is going to be negative 5. Okay, now to find the other one, instead of the plus, all I'm going to do, erase the plus and put a minus. That answer was 1. And that's it. Okay, a long problem, but pretty easy to solve. Okay, the next one, rewrite the function f of x equals x squared minus 6x minus 24 in vertex form. So we kind of just did that. This one's going to be even easier because we don't have to divide anything by the number in the front. Okay, so I'm going to take x squared minus 6x and put that box right here. We're just going to go ahead and put that in the box right there. The only thing that's left is negative 24. Then I'm going to put a box right there. Okay. Once again, how do I find that box number? I just take that negative 6, divide that by 2, and I square that number. Negative 6 divided by 2 is negative 3. Squaring that number is going to give you 9. So this is going to be plus 9. And remember, in the other box, you're going to do the opposite. So it's going to be a minus 9. Okay? So now I take my x, I take the number here, and I place it next to the x. So that's a negative 3 squared, and negative 24 minus 9. So negative 24 minus 9. That gives you negative 33. So the number you're missing here is 3. The number you're missing here is 33. Okay, pretty easy. Move on to question 8. Toy Universe is manufacturing a new toy and deciding on a price that will result in a maximum profit. The graph below represents the profit P generated by each price of a toy X. Okay, and all these questions are multiple choice. So if the company wants to make a maximum profit, the price of the toy should be $2, $12, $22, or $300. So maximum profit is going to be that top. So it's going to be around like right here. Okay. Now if I look at the price around that area, so I draw kind of a line down here. It doesn't have to be perfect. That number is in between 10 and 15. So it's clearly not 2, and it's clearly not 300. It's not 22, so the only number left is 12. So 12 is in between 10 and 15. Makes sense. Okay. To make a profit, the company must charge at least $2.01, $12.01, $22.49, or $300. So the company, in order to make, has to charge at least. So right here is about $2. But they don't make any money. You see how on the line they make no money? Right here they make no money. So what's the next number after $2? Well, the only other number is $2.01. We did a problem like this earlier this unit. Okay. What is the profit for toys? Sorry, what is the profit of toys that are sold at $10? So $10 is right here. If I look up here, draw my line, and I connect, it's about $300. So $300, or $300 in profit. Okay. The interval of toy prices that will result in a profit. So in a profit would result, so the intervals, so starting at, how much money do they sell toys at? They sell them at $2 right here. And what's the highest amount they sell it for? Well, they sell it for the highest price over here, which is in between 20, let's see, that's 21, that's 22, so about $22.50 would sound good. So that would be this answer. The lowest number they sell it at is $2. The highest number they sell it at is about $22.50. Okay. The interval that represents a positive rate of change. So where are they positively making money? So from right here, and I can highlight that part. The place that I just highlighted, that means they're positively making money. Okay. If you think about it, it's like the top of the roller coaster. They're getting high, 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 and then at the bottom is their decrease. So we don't want the decrease. We only want the increase of what they make. So they would start at 2. They would start at 2, right? And that number goes to about 12. Okay, so in between 10 and 15 is about 12. So this number, they would start at 2. And their positive ending is 12. So 12 is the answer. Okay. The company wants to make a profit of at least $200. Which prices below are possible? So if they want to sell their toys for a profit of $200, 200 is right here. So you draw your line and right here, and right here. So the company wants to make a profit of at least $200. So anything below here is not what they want. They don't want anything below there. So all of these numbers, they don't want, because you want to make more than 200. So all of the prices that they need to sell them have to be about $6 to about $19. So $5, they don't make enough. $7.50 would be good. $10, yes, they would make more than that. $12.50, yes. $15, yes. $17.50, yes. $20, no, because $20, they're not making that profit. It's in the blue zone. $22.50, again, in the blue zone, not what we want. So your answers were B, C, D, E, and F. Okay. Go ahead and skip number 9 and move on to number 10. Okay. The graph of a quadratic function is shown below. Which statements are true about the graph? Select all that apply. So the graph has a y-intercept of 0, 8. So if you look right here, this is the y-intercept, and that is in fact 0, 8. So is that true? Yes. The graph has a maximum point at -1 and 9. So maximum point, that means the vertex. That vertex is about right here, and that is in fact -1, 9. So B is correct as well. The graph has an x-intercept at 2, 0. So one of your x-intercepts, yep, is 2, 0. So that's also true. Okay. The axis of symmetry is -3. Well, no, your axis of symmetry was actually going to be the vertex, which the vertex was -1, 9. It's the x value. So this is the axis A of S. It's just -1. So not -3. That's wrong. The graph has zeros at -4 and 2. So the other 0 is -4, 0. So yeah, it does have a 0 of -4 and 2. The intervals on which the rate of change is positive is -5 to 2. So when is it getting positive? Well, it starts at -5. No. So positive, it starts at -4 up to about 10. So that's wrong. And the sign of the leading coefficient is negative. Well, yeah, that means that if you have an A negative, that means your graph's going to look like that. If A equals a positive, your graph looks like a smiley face. Currently, that's a negative, so therefore G is also correct. Okay. Moving on to, we're going to skip number 11 as well and go on to here. Okay. The following graphs are transformations of f of x equals x squared. Write the equations for the transformed graphs of this. Okay. So the blue one right here is actually going to be the f of x one. Okay. So if you notice, the red one went down by 5, 6, 7, 8. So in order for you to go down on a graph, that means that your graph had to have an f of x. Well, this is a of x, sorry. A of x equals, if you're going down, that means your f of x is going to be subtracted by that number, 8. Okay, so if you go down, it's going to go negative. Okay, there isn't one that goes up, so let's do the d of x one. The d of x one moved over 1, 11, 12 spaces to the right. So if you're trying to go spaces to the right, this one would be d of x equals, you're going to put f, and you're going to put x, since it's to the right, it's going to subtract, and it's going to subtract how many spaces that it went. Well, it went over 12 spaces, so it's minus 12 there. Okay, so that's f of x, or d of x equals f of x minus 12. The x is in parentheses. Notice the difference between the a of x and the d of x. All right, this one, b of x, went over to the left 5, 6, 7 times. So this one is going to be b of x equals fx plus that number. So when it's an adding, you're going to move it over to the left. When it's subtracting, you're moving it to the right. All right, so the c of x, the purple one, is going to be interesting because you're moving to the right 5 times, but you're also going up 4 times. So to the right, if I'm moving it to the right, that means it's going to be inside parentheses x minus the 5, like that. And then if it's moving up, you're going to have your f of x plus the how many times it moves up. Since it moved up 4 times, it would be like that. So this one's going to be kind of weird. So it's going to be c of x equals your f of x minus 5. On the outside, you're going to add that by 4. And that would be how that looked.